Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk, the most fact-driven, unbiased true crime channel. And yes, we were scheduled for 6:05 tonight. So a little shout out to Judy, who said, I thought it started at 6. No, 6:05. And no, I am rarely late for court. All right, Judy, giving you a little shout out there. 6:05, just like it said. All right, I hope everyone had a wonderful, long, extended weekend. Labor Day, ironically, they call it Labor Day because nobody's working, but I get it. It is what it is. Long weekend. We jumped into Crime Talk 1, and the lovely Miss Kristen and I went on a little trip, came back yesterday, and I am rested and ready to go. Although I'm not going to lie, I feel a little tired tonight. And I'm not exactly sure what's on with my hair right here. Jeez, what is that? I need a haircut. Anyway, so we are ready to get rolling tonight. And what do you think that we should talk about today? I don't know. Oh, how about those Murdaughs down there in South Carolina? And I don't like to say I told you so, but remember when this case went down, and we're talking, when the son, Paul, gets in trouble, like literally 2 years ago, I guess it was 2.5 years ago now. And I said, there's something about this case. I think something's just weird. You got a family who's basically been the prosecutors in, the Low Country down there in South Carolina for the last 100 years, I think, maybe 80. I'm probably exaggerating when I say I think it's like 85 years that a Murdoch has been basically the lead prosecutor down there during that time. Do you think somebody's created some enemies? Do you think they've got a little favoritism? What have you? And then Paul and Maggie get killed on the property. And then everything that happened this past weekend with Alex, which we'll get to that in just a minute. So, we've got a lot to talk about, but I think the Murdoch case is the big one. Like I said, I had a feeling. There's just something about it. When people with such, as they characterize as power and privilege, get in trouble, it's interesting. You see the dynamics, and guess what? It shows what I've always said. I don't care how much money you have, what your socioeconomic status is in life, okay? Everyone is dysfunctional, okay? I remember as a kid thinking, are we the only dysfunctional family in the neighborhood? Because my brother was always getting in trouble. And no, it wasn't. And now you realize, basically doing the work that I do, you realize, guess what? Everybody has issues. And it doesn't really matter. So, all right, before we get too involved talking about this, need to do a quick promo. All right, listen, bad stuff happens, okay? Most people that come to speak with me, sometimes they're in trouble, right, or their family, and bad things happen. And most people don't have a criminal defense attorney rainy day fund. There's a couple that do, but most people don't. So thank goodness for moms, and parents and grandparents. They usually hire, people, hire defense attorneys for their kids and grandkids because they're trying to make up because they usually screwed up their kids so bad on the first time around. So, but you got to be prepared, right? You're not always going to have the parents and grandparents fall back. You got to be an adult. You got to take care of yourself. Look at what happened when Ida came to town down there in New Orleans. There's still close to 1 million people without power, electricity. This stuff happens. And yes, all the resources can come in, but guess what? They're only going to be able to put those power lines up one at a time. And when you have no power, what can't you do? It's not like you're going to be sitting on your cell phone watching TV, right? There's no power. You have to be able to take care of yourself. And what's the best way to do it is prepare for an emergency. As that storm moved up the coast or, through the country and out the coast up there by New York and New Jersey, it did a lot of stuff. You need to be prepared. Go to crimetalkprep.com. Guess what? You can get a 4-week emergency food kit, and you can get $50 off and no shipping. I mean, you're saving a ton of money, because I'm telling you, these things come in big packages, big buckets. Comes in a big old box. You don't want to have to pay that shipping, so you should do it now. And it's just the responsible thing to do, right? You have stuff in the pantry. Who thought COVID would ever happen, right? But what did everybody do? They ran off. They got everything from the stores. Take care of yourself. Go to crimetalkprep.com. Get your 4-week emergency food kit, $50 off, and free shipping. All right, now let's get back to what we need to talk about tonight, and that is the Murdaugh case. Now, I'm going to try look at something here. So let's do a quick little recap. All right, now, Alex Murdaugh, he's the dad. All right, he's the dad of the prominent law firm in South Carolina. And his wife, Maggie, and son, Paul, were found deceased back on June 7th of this year at their home, their hunting lodge, okay? And then there's no suspects, right? And I've done a lot of homicide cases over the years. And normally if it is what's what I'm looking for? If it was an amateur, usually involved in a homicide, they leave something behind. There's some evidence, right? And we've talked about this before. There is so much data as it relates to, for example, your cell phone that the police can look at. I mean, they can literally see what phone pinged off a particular tower and see who's there. There's no doubt in my mind that the SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, has done that. I have no reason to believe that they're doing anything but trying to find the perpetrator of the death of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. But here we are, 3 months later, and no arrests, no real person of interest. Now, then we have this weekend, and I don't know. Excuse me. Didn't believe I had the phone on there. Jeez. So we have Alex Murdaugh, and I get this, I think it was coming in Saturday. People saying, oh my gosh, Scott, oh my gosh. That Alex Murdaugh had been shot. And this kind of drew everyone's attention back to this case, because let's face it, this is kind of stuff that murder mysteries are made of, okay? And, well, let's do a quick little recap. So literally, it was about 2.5 years ago, Paul Murdoch, the youngest son, he was allegedly drunk and slammed his father's 17-foot fishing boat into a piling near the Archers Creek Bridge, which is just outside of Parris Island, South Carolina. And if anyone's ever been to Parris Island, South Carolina, I happened to be stationed there many, many years ago. I still own some property down there, so I get to go down there occasionally. But you always go over the causeway. It's this big old bridge, takes you right over the river. And then you got Parris Island out there, and they've got the causeway, the drive that you follow out there. But there's all kinds, it's an island. It's literally an island. It's these barrier reef islands. They're surrounded by water. The high tide comes in, and you can go boating on it. When the tide goes out, it frankly doesn't look that appealing. It's muddy. It's not like you're just in water. You're in mud, right? And anyway, so he allegedly slammed this boat into this piling about 2 a.m. on February 23rd of 2019. And a young woman by the name of Mallory Beach, she was 19 at the time, she was killed in that accident. Now, things got a little weird because Paul Murdaugh was ultimately charged by the Attorney General, a guy by the name of Alan Wilson, with one count of boating under the influence resulting in death, and 2 counts of boating under the influence causing great bodily injury, which is great bodily injury is basically serious bodily injury, a break of the bone, permanent scar, disfigurement, things along those lines. Each statute is generally written that way, but you want to check for each jurisdiction. And the young Murdoch faced up to 25 years in prison for the boating under the influence with a minimum of 1 year behind bars, and then 15 years and a minimum of 30 days in jail on the 2 counts of bodily injury charges. And that was per the statute. Now, there was a civil case going on where they sued Alex Murdoch because, well, it was his boat, right? Kind of a negligent entrustment suit. Buster Murdoch was the older brother of Paul Murdoch, who was named because he apparently let him use his ID, Paul Murdoch use his IDs to obtain liquor and beer underage. So that's back in 2019. Then in June of 2021, June 7th to be exact, Paul Murdoch and his mother, Maggie, both murdered on their 1,700-acre hunting property that the family owns. Paul Murdoch was reportedly killed by a pair of shotgun blasts, one to the chest, another to his arm and head. And Maggie was reportedly killed by a semi-automatic rifle at about the same time that her son was killed. Her cell phone was discovered the following day along a rural South Carolina road, generally near the house where the killings took place. So that's a little odd. I doubt she lost her phone driving down the road. Maybe somebody took it when they got done, shooting her perhaps. Then Alex Murdoch, the father and obviously the husband of Maggie, claims to have discovered the bodies after returning from a visit to his mother's home earlier in the evening. And then Alex Murdoch was identified by both law enforcement and prosecutors as a person of interest in the investigation, even though he ostensibly provided investigators with a very solid alibi at the time of the killings. Interesting, right? And then it continues on. Like I said, there's the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division has kept a pretty tight lid on everything. Not a whole lot of leaks. We haven't got a whole lot of information about any other people of persons of interest, and nothing is like, hey, we have a suspect, be on the lookout for a particular car. We saw this suspect, with this physical description, and we would like to talk with them. Nothing whatsoever. And then over the weekend, we get this whole situation with Alec Murdoch on Saturday. And I wouldn't say it's interesting, but he allegedly has a issue with his car. Apparently, according to his family and maybe an attorney, that he was changing his tire as he was driving up to Charleston, South Carolina, which is about, depending on how you take the road, if you're kind of going the back way, figure about an hour, 15 minutes, from the low country there up to Charleston, which is still considered low country, but it takes about an hour and 15 minutes. So, and when you first get the news, oh my gosh, Alec Murdoch had been shot. Oh my gosh, your first thought is, there's no way this is just a coincidence, right? Obviously, somebody's targeting this family. And as the statements come out, is that apparently Alex Murdoch was changing a tire. A car drives by. No indication of whether somebody exchanged words. Maybe somebody came too close, whatever. And a car apparently circles back and then fires and hits Alec Murdoch. It's unclear exactly who called the police, at least from what I have read. we'll just have to, wait and see. What is interesting about this, right? I mean, there's already people that are speculating, saying, hey, we don't trust this family. We just don't trust them. And, obviously this is what happens when people have been in power too long. They think they can get away with lots of things, and people just don't like and or trust them. I mean, there's people out there throwing around theories that this was some sort of staged attack to throw or shift suspicion away from the family. Was it self-inflicted? I mean, apparently he was flown via helicopter down to Savannah, Georgia to, be treated, but he had a superficial flesh wound. I mean, when they said he was shot in the head, my first, oh my gosh, he's going to die, etc. Then they say it's a superficial flesh wound. Like, what are the odds? Maybe it was just somebody random. But like I said, the police are going to get all that data from cell phone towers and see who was in that general area. Obviously, there's going to be, if the rounds were collected, shots are fired. Was it a semi-automatic? Was there a shell casing? I mean, that's going to provide, some evidence whatsoever. It's going to provide some evidence in the long run. It could help. You just don't know exactly what it's going to be. It could be absolutely something, or it could be absolutely nothing. And like I said, a superficial gunshot wound to the head. I mean, I guess it's possible, right? We'll have to wait and see. Apparently that car was towed from the scene, and it looks like, from the photo that I saw, it doesn't look like there's any issues with the car other than the flat tire. There's a couple of markers out that on the picture that I've been able to see. It's unclear what items of evidentiary value those would be. Like I said, would it be shell casing? Would it be bullets? Did a pen fall out of his hand? If he's changing his tire, was it? Did it just happen? Did it? What was the process? Why? Who knows? And then it gets even more interesting than that. Let's back before we talk about the real good stuff. So you would think that Alex Murdaugh would be cooperating with law enforcement to the nth degree. Anything he could do to provide. No information so far as to what kind of car this alleged shooter was driving. Was there any kind of physical description, an ID? How many times have we talked about it? How important it is? That's the important thing, is to be able to ID somebody in court and say, there's the bad man that did the bad thing to me, right? You need that. That's why it's hard in homicide cases. You need to be able to identify somebody's there, like through DNA, through bullets that come from a gun that, the defendant owned, something along those lines. So hopefully Mr. Alex Murdaugh has been able to provide some sort of identification, some information that can lead to this, and to see, assuming it all took place, that these people are brought to justice, because you can't go around shooting people. That's attempted murder. And then what happens? It gets real interesting. Apparently, the law firm that Alex Murdaugh is a partner in, he resigns rather abruptly. And he issues a statement that he basically is apologizing to everybody for all the choices that he's made. And that he's going off to rehab. I first think to myself, oh, he's going to rehab. Of course, he's just been shot in the head. No. Then they say opioid addiction. Now, I don't know how, according to Mr. Murdoch, and his statement says, the murder of my wife and son have caused an incredibly difficult time in my life. in his statement, I have made a lot of decisions that I truly regret. I'm resigning from my law firm and entering rehab after a long battle that has been exacerbated by these murders. I'm immensely sorry to everyone I've hurt, including my family, friends, and colleagues. I ask for prayers as I rehabilitate myself and my relationships. Wow. Okay. Obviously, people can get addicted to opioids. It can happen quite easily. Who knows if he's had medical issues and he was prescribed opioids and became addicted. Things have changed over the last several years. It used to be the doctors would say, here's prescription for hundreds of, pills, opioid pills, based pills that you can use, come back when you need more. Now doctors don't usually give more than about 3 days unless you're under a specific pain management doctor and following their prescriptions. And so, wish him well. Wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And, but then he says, I'm resigning from my law firm. Okay, this law firm is a law firm that his grandfather had started like 85 years ago. The whole family's there. Apparently they're rather influential, very powerful firm there in the Low Country in South Carolina. And then the news breaks that the firm stated that they've done some forensic accounting of the books. And I'm not sure where Alex Murdaugh fit in this partnership. Was he the guy writing the checks? Was he managing partner? What was it? But then all of a sudden they say that he may have stolen, allegedly, millions of dollars from the law firm. Millions of dollars, right? A lot of money. I can guarantee you, lawyers don't like to give up money that they think they've earned. And his partners, assuming his friends as well, didn't take lightly to that. They turned it over to law enforcement, okay? And they also turned it over to the South Carolina bar, which means that, hey, his law partners are pissed, right? They want their money. Bottom line. But then it makes you think, well, I thought the Murdochs were this wealthy family. You see all the photos of them attending black tie events, and they've got this 1,700 acre property. So it makes it seem that, they have all this other property. Maybe things in the law firm business weren't that good. Maybe the opioids were a little more expensive than they, thought they were going to be when you're, buying them off the street. Who knows exactly how he was getting them, if that's truly his issue. But my experience is in life, seeing these types of situations, people don't go to rehab just one day when they say, hey, I think I've had enough of opioid addiction. There's something that makes them hit that point where they're like, I have no choice but to go to treatment. For example, maybe Mr. Murdaugh's case would be a near-death experience, assuming somebody was truly shooting at him. And also in this particular case, oh, by the way, my law firm has basically fired me even though he resigns. They fired him even though he's resigning. And then, what's the best way to get a little mitigation, a little sympathy? Oh my gosh, let me run off to treatment when his whole world's crumbling down. Okay. I've had an employee that stole money from me. And one of the dumbest things one could possibly do is steal from an attorney, let alone a criminal defense attorney knows exactly what you need to do to prove your case. And when the detective showed up, I handed him his case. Bam, there you go. it was pretty much case closed. You know, the guy drug it out for a little while, but the reality is he's in prison right now, and I'm never going to see my money. Same thing I would imagine from the Murdaughs. His law firm, they're not going to be happy, and they're going to want their money. They're going to want their money. So the firm of Peters, Murdoch, Parker, Ellsroth, and Dietrich. That's he was law partners with his brother, his late father. I think their website's still down. And, this firm goes back to like 2000, a Murdoch. A Murdoch has served as solicitor, basically the prosecutor of a 5-county region from 1920 through 2006. I mean, think about it. You think maybe if you're the prosecutor, you've created a few enemies along the way. That's the kind of situation where you have to go back and look at all the people that basically were disgruntled. I mean, literally down to a parking ticket or to serious felony cases to see would they have a motive to want to get back at the Murdochs. Then, of course, could it be something related to Paul's shenanigans that he pulled where, Miss Beach passed away. It's, it's bad news. And the whole world is crumbling down. And it appears that things don't always appear as they are, right? Perception is reality, but sometimes it's not reality at all. The firm issued a statement saying, rest assured that our firm will deal with this in a straightforward manner. There's no place in our firm for such behavior. Due to the ongoing investigation, these matters incline confidentiality. The firm cannot comment further at this time. Encourage any client to contact us. So it looks like the Murdochs, at least Alex, maybe wasn't as responsible as the older generation, perhaps. We certainly know Paul thought that he could kind of get away with it. And, maybe that's the kind of thing that, like all things in life, you get more of what you tolerate. And maybe, that's the problem these days is you get people that, there's this behavior that you wouldn't allow a small child to engage in and nobody corrects them. They don't correct them at all. And then they just kind of go from there. So I don't know. It's interesting. Gosh, can you believe it's already 6:30? And look at all the comments that have been going by. Wow. It's literally, I have just going through the screen here. And then also you have to take a look at the fact that maybe old Alex Murdoch maybe was in a financial pinch, maybe gotten some deep with some bad people, which kind of makes you think, why was that murder? There's not a whole lot of clues, things of evidentiary value that was there. It's just, we'll see, maybe, and I'm not saying Mr. Murdoch had anything to do with it, but it just seems a little interesting. Oh, and somebody also stated allegedly he was also having an affair, which was probably expensive in and of itself. Let's see here. Maggie, she was fed up with him having an affair. Divorce for him, millions. Paul was going to end up being found guilty, and they'd have to hand over money to the Mallory Beach family. Well, they could still wind up ending up paying money to the Mallory Beach family, even with everyone deceased. Dad is on the hook. He's got insurance. We know that, at least a little bit, on the boat. But I think things are going to go only downhill from this point forward for Alex Murdoch. That's for sure. So, all right, let's take a quick recess. We'll be back in, 45 seconds? 60. All right, 60 seconds. We'll be back in 1 minute. Take a quick recess. We'll continue talking about the Murdoch family. Please go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for a background subscription service. You'll be happy you did. If there's anyone out there you were ever curious about what was in their background, now is the time to do it. If you're going to get involved with somebody, now is the time to do it. When you go to crimetalksearch.com, you put in the name, literally millions of public records are searched, and a report is generated. And it's going to give you a report. If they have multiple social media accounts, you're going to find it. If they have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses, it's going to be found. And more importantly, you're going to get information regarding criminal history. Hopefully the person you're searching has none whatsoever. But if it's there, it's going to be found. You're going to get everything you'd want to know, whether you're going into business or whether you're going into a personal relationship. You're going to be able to find out the information you want to know. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today. You'll be happy you did. All right, we're back. What is the best investigative tool that you can possibly have? I'm telling you, it's a background search. We use CrimeTalk Search literally every day in our law practice. You would not be, it would surprise you probably how many times we use it. And just on witnesses, you find out stuff you just wouldn't think. And it's the kind of thing where you can sign up and you can use it once, or you can get a subscription. And, it's the kind of thing you can go and look up the Murdochs, all those things, everything you've ever wanted to know about somebody, you can probably try to find it. So take a look. Go to crimetalksearch.com. All right. So, I think that's the big story of the day. It's absolutely huge. I'm telling you, this story, when it came out, I said there's something about it. Everybody likes to see the alleged rich and powerful at their weakest moments, so to speak. And like I said, I think things are going to go very, very poorly for Alec Murdoch from here on out. Fine. Go to your rehab. We'll see you in 4 to 6 weeks. But somehow I think, at least as it relates to the allegations relating to his law firm, that there will probably be a warrant for his arrest, and he will be hiring attorneys, and things aren't not good. So it's just kind of shows people never believe me when I say it, that you can be on top of the world. Your world is absolutely wonderful, and just like that, something can happen. A boating accident, somebody, drives drunk. You're the victim of a crime. You're the victim of somebody injuring you. It just can happen that quickly, and people don't realize it, how in that few brief seconds, families' lives can change and forever be changed. And sometimes people are like, oh, that'll never happen to me. My family's a good family. We do the right thing, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm telling you, I have clients all the time that come from very, very good families, but they just, it can all change in a heartbeat. Just that one bad decision. Cat's out of the bag. Fair winds to Crime Talk 1. Yes. Frank, do you have that little video really quick? Not to digress. Taking off. This was a quick little video shot on lovely Miss Kristen's phone as we were departing. Here we are rolling, rotating 80 knots, climbing up, flaps, gear up, flaps coming up. And, if I could do that just about every day, I would be absolutely thrilled to death. But we don't always get to do it every day, everything that we always want to do. But, it's a good time. So that was us departing yesterday, I guess it was. And I've never had a headwind in my life. Literally flying down Usually, expect something when you kind of go west, but it was, just about everywhere else, it was unbelievable. And then coming back, when you go from west to east, you usually have a tailwind, and didn't have one. So thanks, Cat's Out of the Bag, for bringing that up. I know some people, I know it's not talking about flying, because it's not true crime, but every now you got to break it up with a little bit of everyday stuff. Kathleen, Crime Talk. Last time I could watch was 6/29. I cannot send a message on Patreon. Okay. Julie is trying to look her up. Maybe she's not a Patreon anymore.
You email CrimeTalk at Rice Law Firm, and we can talk about it.
Send an email to crimetalk at Reisch, REISCH, lawfirm.com, and Julie will look it up. All right, Kathleen? Let's take a look here. And we have a lot of comments. Man, they went flying by here. Yeah, we're all one mistake away. Albion Anissa. Yeah, I mean, people just don't get it. It can all change that quickly. People just don't get it. And that's why it's like, some people, sometimes you would get in trouble sometimes when I'm like, well, I'll just tell you the story. I mean, you try to solve people's problems all day. Sometimes you do the best you can. And I remember I would, go home occasionally, and it would be like, you didn't pick up the dog poop before the lawn guy came. How could, oh my gosh. And I'm literally thinking, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There are people with real freaking problems in the world. And if your biggest problem is the fact that the dog poop didn't get picked up before the lawn guy came, really? Like, come talk to me when you got real problems in the world, okay? And so, not that I'm saying you can't ignore the little things, because you have to pay attention to the little things, because failure to pay attention to detail demonstrates an inability to accept larger responsibility. But there's some things that are just not that important, right? Like, you just can't let that be the focus of your life. And some people do. And it's like, man, every day you got to wake up and say, damn, I am appreciative of where I am, what I have. And yes, you may always want to have maybe just a little bit more or what have you. But the reality of it is, man, you've got your liberty, you've got your health, which is probably the most important thing ever. Just be happy you're here, right? There are people around the world that have it so much better or so much worse off than we do. And so you just got to be appreciative of it, because it can change just like that. I've seen it. People don't believe me when they, but I've seen literally families lose it all because of one silly, usually kid. And it just goes down from there, and it just affects everything. I mean, so you just need to appreciate what you've got. Let's see, question. But most of us don't live a life of multi-generational power and wealth, privilege before the fall. These people did, and they took the fall. May they all rot in hell. All right, Elsie. No, I appreciate it. I mean, let's face it, right? I mean, lots of people like to see the car accident on the side of the road, right? They want to drive by and say, oh my gosh, look at that. Look at that. And sometimes it gives you even greater pleasure when it is somebody that is, rich and powerful or what have you. Maybe not, people that you thought were nice people. You don't like to see bad things happen to good people. And what I mean is good people are people that treat everyone with dignity and respect, right? Everybody knows the people that they inherited their money, or they made a bunch of money and they just turned out to be complete asses, right? And, So yeah, I mean, it's just, you don't want to see that. But when people are jerks, you kind of think, they deserve it. You want to get some popcorn. This is going to be good. And I think over the years, the Murdochs have made a whole lot of enemies. They're probably offended to people, and they thought that they could get away with just about anything. And then people are saying, oh, look, it's all coming home. Okay, here. Now we have somebody that says, I look sickly, the Victorian Edge. Well, my ears are a little sunburned because I was probably in the sun. Every now and then I get this little stress thing right here. And, although it's Tuesday, it started out like a Monday. And, lucky my head didn't explode first thing this morning when stuff started rolling in from the weekend. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for your concern, Kristen. Kristen. I imagine the family of the poor girl killed, the Beach family, the boating axe is enjoying the karma. I hope that they wouldn't say, oh, look. But, it's the old adage, what goes around comes around. And I've said this before, and I will say it again, because if you take away one thing from tonight's episode, it's one of my 12 undeniable truths from a criminal defense attorney. That video, we've talked about it a couple times. We put it up. I think we've updated it. Rule number 1, the most important rule. There are 2 types of people in the world. Those that are humble and those that are about to be. Okay? You would like to think that the Murdochs basically grew up with some power, some privilege, that they should have been humble and appreciate that. And with great power comes great responsibility. But it sounds like they were kind of feeling like they were entitled and that they could do no wrong and that they were special. And instead of saying, wow, because we've held this position, or Murdoch has held this position for the last 80 some odd years, that we are true public servants, we are humbled by that, and we serve the people. But it sounds like that's not the case. So what's happened? They weren't humbled, and they're about to be, if they haven't already been. I can imagine being accused of stealing multiple millions of dollars from your law firm, your family being killed, you maybe being shot at, that would be something that would humble you, that maybe things aren't just, that's more than just a bad day. That's kind of years in the making, so to speak, for them. Scorpion Rising. Hi, yes, anything can change your life in a split second. I never thought I would lose a child in a car accident. Thank you for your channel. Really enjoy it. Greetings from South Africa. Scorpion Rising, I'm so sorry for your loss. I could not imagine losing a child. That would be their worst thing ever. And don't get me wrong, you think about it every day. I mean, you just hope kids do the right thing. I have a daughter. She works with sick people all day. You hope she doesn't get sick, something along those lines. I got a son who's a pilot in the military. You hope they fix those things and he doesn't get the cheap one that day and everything goes well. But you got to be, So sorry for your loss. Sorry for your loss. Scott, you need to have a drink and a stogie during these. Yeah, but we can't do this whole stogie thing here in the studio. We'd have to run out to the airplane hangar. Or we could do it, I guess, from my porch where we did it last time, right? Yeah. Okay, Margie, and this is, this is the best part, is reading people's stuff. And Kelly B, super chat. And here's the thing, we don't ask for super chats, but they get highlighted, so thank you very much. Margie, Too Many Bodies, The Housekeeper, Mallory Beach, Stephen Smith. Yep, he's the student from the school. Yeah, they think they tried to say that he was hit by a car, but probably beaten to death. Alex involved in malpractice suits and was a part-time prosecutor too. Yeah. I'm telling you, you just got to be so, you just got to be happy and appreciative of what you have, because it can all go away that quickly. How do you stay positive while being immersed in the pit of despair? Good question, Chris. There's a lot of burnout amongst attorneys. A lot of burnout amongst criminal defense attorneys, prosecutors, because you really see people at their worst. You really, really do. You get to see the worst of human nature. Oftentimes you get to see the best of human nature when somebody steps in and is, kind of the hero, the good Samaritan, so to speak. And so, it's tough dealing with everybody's else's problems. What's the old saying? The cobbler fixes shoes, but his kids have fixes everybody's shoes, but his kids are barefoot or something. Because you deal all day with everybody else's problems, you don't have time to take care of your own. And by the end of the day, you're so exhausted. How do you do that? You just want to be like, love me, look alone. Well, thank you, Saltina. I'm glad I don't look sickly or anything. I'm glad for that. Yes. Oh yeah, the porch live. Why does your office look so different? Well, this isn't not the office, T. Hudson. This is the studio. We kind of changed it up a little bit. We're trying to see. We took an informal poll, and a lot of people like the old studio versus the new studio. But we tried to, because some people like, oh, it looks too cluttered. It looks like what's going on. And there's a lot of activity back over there. Is there something I need to know about, guys?
We're working on the Patreon.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Let's see here. The other day I was stopped at a crosswalk. The kids crossing. The car pulled. I told my kids, yeah. The kids have no. Yeah, laughing. Do you think the shooting was staged? You mentioned it today and wanted to hear your thoughts about it. I don't know, William. I don't know if it was staged or not. If somebody is shooting from you and it's unclear, according to the story, whether it was somebody was stationary, stopped, or whether they were driving by. But superficial flesh wound, I'm not sure why you would be medevaced via air if you just got a grazing of the bullet, goes across. Maybe, he was released from the hospital on Monday, maybe for observations. There's no reports that he was shot anywhere else. And thank goodness, he's fine. He'll probably wish that, things are bad. Things are going from bad to worse for Alex Murdaugh. First, he loses his family. Like I said, wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Losing your wife, your kid. And, even if he was having other dalliances with other women, the reality of it is that I'm sure he didn't want his wife to die. I hope not. If he did, nobody's saying he had anything to do with it. Yes, he was a person of interest, but apparently has a lock solid alibi. So I don't think there's anything to say that that's part of it. But it could be some of his dealings, or maybe the people that he's dealing with. If he's stealing from his law firm, that probably means that he has taken all the draws that he can take from the law firm, which is an advance. He's probably tapped out kind of his line of credit, maybe, mortgaged the property, trying to, keep his drug addiction, maybe, boozing it up, chasing women, who knows? And if he's, obviously the first question is, and every time I've ever had a theft case, the first thing you tell a client is, hey, if you don't want to go to prison, you probably better come up with it from legitimate sources of income. If not, you need to Probably plan on going to prison. So if Mr. Murdoch doesn't have an extra couple $1 million laying around, probably tell him, hey, you better plan on going to prison. You better sell your assets. But then you have all these civil lawsuits going on right now, and they're going to want to, keep those assets to pay themselves off, if there's a judgment against him for that. It's just a mess. It is just a mess. Yes, Debbie, head wounds can bleed. Yes, they can. Very, very. Even my wounds can bleed. I mean, think about it. Cut yourself shaving. You ever see sometimes that stuff just bleeds and bleeds and bleeds. Can't get a stop. But I don't know. I don't know. The Murdoch family. I mean, I'm sure the grandfather, the great-grandfather, sounds like they were truly visionaries. They knew what they had to do. They succeeded in life. And as oftentimes as you go down the generations, they lose some of that drive. The classic situation of, to use a baseball analogy, that, they were born on third base and, thought somehow they hit a triple. Yeah, no. It's, I don't like to talk about the deceased in a negative light, but you never, Paul Murdoch didn't exactly seem like the epitome of greatness, so to speak, and maybe Alex has got some issues as well. Miss Iris's, I think he tried to commit suicide. Well, yeah, I think we would know something by now if that was the case, because, where did the gun go? Even if he tried to commit suicide and didn't, do it and had a superficial flesh wound, I would imagine that must have hurt like a son of a gun, where you were not out there trying to, stash the firearm, something along those lines. I just don't know. The one I feel really bad for is the other Murdoch son, who by all accounts is a really good guy. I think that was Buddy. Is that his name? Buster. Yeah, Buster. But apparently he's the one that gave his younger brother the ID, or maybe he didn't know he was giving him the ID, or he took it or something along those lines. So you just never know. I feel sorry for him. Yeah, I mean, his world is crumbling down. I mean, he's lost his mother, his brother. Dad looks like he's in a precarious situation. The grandfather had recently passed away. It's, like I said, it's easy to say, oh, I wish terrible things, but you don't, because, that whole karma thing can be a bitch, right? So, yep. Holly confirmed Alex's father passed away literally days after Maggie and them. Yep. I remember that. I mean, so yeah, it's, it's an interesting set of circumstances. Scott, you look tired today. I believe that you'd never see me on a private plane. I don't even feel that comfortable flying commercial. Factual breakdown. Okay, we've talked about this before. But, I mean, listen, flying is generally safe, right? I mean, mistakes are going to be made. You haven't had a big airliner crash in many years. That's why you got to stay proficient, current. There's a difference between current and proficiency. But I don't have any problems with it. And coming over the mountains, it always gets a little bumpy. Yes, it does. But even the lovely Miss Kristen was unfazed by the bumps yesterday. She was basically sleeping the whole time, and she woke up and was like, are we there yet? And I'm like, yeah, we'll be on the ground in 15, 20 minutes. So, yeah, I do feel a little tired. I'm not going to deny that, but I think it was just busy weekend. Like, let's just say I had my morning all planned out, and then about 7:30, my whole morning got completely reshuffled, all completely unbeknownst to me that it was going to come that way. Not in a bad word. It's just things come up in the practice of law, and you just have to take care of it, and you have to do it as quickly as possible. So flying is safe. I love flying. We talked about this the other week. Spirit Airlines, the Frontiers of the world. Last time I flew Frontier, I will never fly them again. And they used to actually be one of my favorite airlines when they first started. Now you wouldn't catch me on them ever again. I don't know. I like private. I like being able to drive up, get in, not have to take off my shoes when I go flying, right? I don't like showing up an hour and 15 minutes late or early, to be at your gate, which means you have to be there, to go through, stand in line. And I've got the TSA pre and the clear, and it's just not fun. So if I can fly there, yes, I'm going to do it myself. There's sometimes it's just not practical economically to do so, or you just, but I would, I am a capitalist pig through and through, but there should be socialized private air travel. Okay, let's just say what. Just kidding. Although I would like a jet. Okay, I would like a jet. Just saying, a jet would be nice. But I am just appreciative for what I have, and I appreciate that. Jenny, I'm glad you finally caught us live. I hope it was worth it. Wendy, aren't you nervous flying at all? No, not really. No. It's really kind of funny. You get up in the air, you take off, you hit the autopilot. It follows the little magenta line. Sometimes they tell you, don't follow the little magenta line. Go to this heading on the compass, and you do that. Yeah. Do you provide a bag of peanuts? Barb wants to know. We can provide anything we want. You can bring your own drinks. You can bring your own food, anything you want. Usually the beverage service, is there. The lovely Miss Kristen likes to drink her sparkling rosé. And quick story once. We were on a friend's plane, and we were coming down. And I wasn't flying, but I was in the co-pilot seat up front. And the lovely Miss Kristen was in the back. And let's just say maybe she brought a bottle of sparkling rosé. And all of a sudden we hear this pop. And Mark and I look around and we're thinking, oh my gosh, there must have been something, the pressurization. We have to make an emergency descent. And Kristen was back there holding the rosé in the bottle, and we're like, oh, okay. But the loud pop, made us think that something was going on bad, but it wasn't. But yeah, she's a pretty good experienced flyer. And in the little back area of my plane, we can make it a little bed for her. So literally she downloads movies, watches those movies, wakes up, and wants to know, are we there yet? It's pretty good. Kelly B, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it. Hopefully there wasn't a question on that one. But yeah, we don't provide bags of peanuts. Like I said, Jenny, hope you enjoyed it. I personally would be very much like to meet the lovely Miss Kristen. I've tried to convince the lovely Miss Kristen to come in front of the camera, but she is hesitant to do so. So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. All right. Wow. Look at that. Already 1 hour. There you go. Can you believe it? So now we have to go, and we're going to go over to our Patreon show that we're going to do for our Patreon members. If you haven't become a Patreon member, now would be a good time to do so. It's their show, and our Patreon member show will try to answer every one of their questions that they have. And the beautiful thing is they can actually call in. So if you'd like to call in, you can become a Patreon member, and we will chat with you about whatever is on your mind. Scott, is it the sickly wall color that is causing the confusion? Tabitha, when you get to 200K subscribers, will you give a flight to one of us? Possibly. Yeah. That's a good idea. Something to consider. Thank you. If he was scared for his life, who changes a tire in a rural area? Well, I mean, you got to do it somewhere, Sarah. But at least it wasn't like, in the middle of the night where, sounds like something from a horror flick. But my first thought was, oh my gosh, have you, this guy was clearly being targeted. That was my first thought. And then I'm getting to be a little more skeptical. So Trish wants to know, have you ever flown to Telluride? I hear it's scary. Yes, many, many times. Had a case down there a couple of years ago. And I would take Matt, one of the attorneys in my office. He's still here, but we would fly down to Telluride. And Telluride, I've actually got some pretty good video of it. But I think it's from a phone. But yeah, it's literally on top of a side of a mountain that's been flattened. And there's only one way in and one way out. You come in and you land. And literally it looks like you're landing on a big old boat out in the middle of the mountains. It's usually rough, turbulent, because the winds and it blows you around pretty good. And then when you take off, you're taking off down the runway and it just like, you got plenty of runway to go, but all you see is like the end of it just drops off. And so you're flying, and it literally falls off a cliff. I think I've got some pretty good video of that somewhere. I should probably have to find that. It's pretty good, but yeah. Telluride and Aspen are two of the airports that I wouldn't say the scariest thing. The scariest one I've ever flown into is Glenwood Springs, and I would never, ever do that again. You have to hug the side of the mountain. You come around, you try to land one way in, one way out. There's a power line at the end of the runway. Never, ever going to do that again. Never, ever, ever going to do that again. I don't care if it's the last airport. Never doing it. I will float, glide over to Grand Junction. Never doing that again. Yeah. Miss Iris's. Yep. Sounds like it could have been his drug dealer. Or perhaps. All right. There we go. Thanks for watching. Please join us on our Patreon show. And thanks. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.